You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I am your host, Steph, and today I'm joined by Chris. We're going to be talking about the 49ers and Seahawks game, and in particular, we'll be talking about the rain and how that might impact this game, what we could expect, because unfortunately, it looks like it's going to rain quite a bit. So we'll get into that, but before we do, Chris, how you feeling today? How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I'm losing sleep though. I like try not to think about it too much. The game coming up. I'm glad it's on Saturday. Actually, we may talk about it a little bit, but real anxious and looking forward to the game. So always on Twitter, always looking at what 49er news could be coming out, NFL news and such. Like it's like the trade deadline or something. Just a lot of excitement. How about you?
Yeah, it is. And not only is it Saturday, but it's the early game. So assuming everything goes well, we'll be kicking back our feet and enjoying the rest of the games, right? So that's kind of the positive side of having that Saturday early slot. But I'm good, and I'm with you. Like there's some nervousness. It's like. You know that the 49ers should beat the Seahawks. You know they're the better team, but you also know that it's playoffs. You also know that it's the Seahawks. So like you always have in the back of your mind that anything can happen. And also we're talking about the rain. We're hearing about the rain. It's been crazy in the Bay Area lately, as we know. So we know that could be an equalizer as well, right? Could even the playing field, and it's not something we like to think about, but it's definitely a thing. So we'll talk about it here in a bit, but let's get into some 49ers news at this point. Dang it. 1 second. Have some visual difficulties here.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Here we go. All right. So Brock Purdy was named NFC Offensive Rookie of the Month. And Christian McCaffrey, NFC Offensive Player of the Month. I mean, this is no surprise, I think, for both of these players, the way they've been playing. Brock Purdy, of course, as a rookie, what he's been accomplishing. And the fact that, he's getting a lot of consideration now for Offensive Rookie of the Year, I don't think this is very surprising for anyone, right?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, Brock's been doing his thing, playing very well. Really commanding the offense, and it's interesting, right? Because I feel like he is playing with house money a little bit. I don't know that he has so much. Ty, what's up, man? I don't know if he has the bar isn't exactly too high for him, which is good. I think he can go out there and play loose, play free, play within the system and such. And he's actually, the numbers show it. It's not just because of the fact that he was 7th round pick, last pick in the draft, that, he's getting this accolade because he's playing like decent and the team's winning. Like he's actually a contributor to, why the team is winning. And Christian McCaffrey speaks for himself. I mean, I think, as his play continues throughout the year, it's more and more of a surprise that he wasn't a Pro Bowler or All Pro this year. So, his numbers are what they are. And he's also a major contributor to the success the team has had on this 10-game winning streak.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't listen to Kenzo here in the comments. I think he's just trolling. Jimmy Garoppolo is not coming back next week. I mean, but they've been talking about the possibility, right? I mean, the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't placed on IR, that's always certainly possible that he can come back. I think most likely divisional round or Super Bowl if Jimmy does come back. But if he comes back, he's not going to be the starter. Let's just get that right out of the way. He would be a backup. Brock Purdy, this is Brock Purdy's team now for the rest of the season. And, we'll talk about what happens like next year. I'm sure we have plenty of time to talk about it in the off season, but,
sure.
Brock Purdy, I think has run away with the starting job for the rest of this season. He's deserved it. So, and, I'm glad that that comment. Yeah, he brought up the Dre Greenlaw. I want to talk about Dre Greenlaw and some of these players that are going to be available for this game because kind of exciting injury report because there aren't a lot of names on it. Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, is out, and Ambry Thomas, he's still dealing with his ankle injury. He's out, but Ambry Thomas isn't a starter, so this is a pretty positive injury report for the 49ers. Drake Greenlaw is going to be back. Aaron Banks is going to be back. Of course, Debo and Elijah didn't have any setbacks after their return last week, so they're good to go. So this is just positive all around for the 49ers. As far as the Seahawks go, they just have some questionables. Their defensive tackle, Al Woods, Shelby Harris, and a couple of backup players. So all in all, both teams are going to be healthy, all things considered, right, going into this game. So I think that's great for both teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I saw something recently that said that this is the healthiest that the Niners have been since the early weeks of the season. And if I'm not mistaken, as far as like week one starters, I think the only players who are out right now, who aren't active, I should say, are Emmanuel Mosley and Trey Lance. So that's really good. I mean, considering, the middle part of the season, we had Javon Kinlaw out 3 months. Eric Armstead missed a couple months. Yeah. And then you had players who missed some duty here and there throughout the year. Of course, Debo's missed several games. But, loading up going into the playoffs, and it's a good look.
It's definitely a good look. You know what else is a good look are the end zones
for
the playoffs. We got the red end zones, as they like to bring out, candlestick days. They got the saloon font. Yes. I mean, this is energy right here. I love this for the 49ers. I love this for Levi Stadium. This is the best part about hosting a home playoff game is, you get to flex some history. You get to flex some red end zones. I'm a big fan of this. Also, the NFC logo, the old school helmet. It's beautiful.
Oh, it hits hard without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're gonna get into some other topics here. First being actually, before we get into the talk about this game, I also wanted to talk about some of the All-Pro selections. Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, and Kyle Juszczyk, all first team All-Pro for this season. You feeling pretty good about the selections? I mean, those guys definitely deserve it, I think.
I am. I actually, I wasn't sure. I was going to ask you about that. I knew they made it, but I wasn't sure if they were first or second. I was actually going to look it up. But I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I was hoping that maybe we would have a year like Navarro Bowman had. If you remember several years ago, before Bo stepped off the team, before he retired, he actually didn't make the Pro Bowl, but made an All-Pro. I think second team All-Pro that year, which really spoke to what the writers thought about his play that year, even though he didn't make the Pro Bowl, which, as we already know, kind of is a popularity contest sometimes or whatever. So I was hoping that maybe Dre Greenlaw would get some of that love, because when you look at the statistics that he's had throughout the season, especially, with the consistency, I was maybe hoping that he would slide into there, but he didn't. But I'm really excited about the All Pros. And I'm also kind of excited about the fact that Christian McCaffrey didn't get picked, because the reason why I say that, I would have wanted him to, of course, but George Kittle said earlier this week in the locker room that Christian McCaffrey's actually been using that as motivation. So that's interesting, right? So that's something that, he's already a great player, but if he has extra fire behind him, then he's gonna probably be really showing out in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And not just All Pro, but Pro Bowl as well, which of course Pro Bowl is kind of a joke compared to the All Pro. But still, to be snubbed from both, I think is huge, and definitely, McCaffrey's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. So just a player that good playing with a chip on his shoulder, watch out, everyone, because I think the 49ers are going to be able to ride that throughout this playoffs. But look, we're hearing some things about, DeMeco Ryans and Adam Peters getting some consideration for Adam Peters for GM roles and D'Amico Ryans for head coaching positions. Adam Peters, we've heard that he declined the Titans and Cardinals GM interviews. And, John Lynch, he was on KNBR earlier this morning, and he pretty much confirmed that, there isn't much to that than, Adam Peters himself making that decision. It has nothing to do with John Lynch possibly leaving or going somewhere else or getting a promotion within the 49ers. It is simply Adam Peters just being happy where he's at with his position right now with the 49ers. So he's happy to decline those positions. On the other hand, D'Amico Ryans, he is going to be taking these interviews. And we just learned today about a couple of other teams that have thrown their hat in the mix for D'Amico Ryans. First, it was the Broncos. Then it was God, who is the other team?
Texans, I think.
Texans, yes. Texans. So those were the first two. And then today we also heard Panthers. That's another one that John Lynch confirmed on KNBR. And just recently you also saw Cardinals.
Yeah, I just saw that.
So, man, I would hate for him to be in the NFC West. I really hope he doesn't consider that Cardinals position. But at the same time, like, I could see what's appealing to it. You have a quarterback in Kyler Murray who, he's recovering from an ACL, so he may not be ready to go at the start of the season, but still you have a good situation. I think on offense, there's some good pieces there to work with. And on defense, I think there's some good pieces. There's a foundation at least. But I also like that Panthers position for D'Amico Ryans as well. I mean, just because that's another team that I think has some really good, solid foundations. That defense, I think, is very underrated. They have some pieces. It's really just about getting the best out of them, right? So that Panthers job, I could see being appealing to D'Amico. But is there like a favorite situation for him that you would like to see him in?
So I think it goes without being said that D'Amico's probably gonna have his pick, right? He's gonna have his pick of whatever circumstances that he ideally sees for himself, whether it's moving into a franchise such as the Cardinals. I wouldn't want him to go to the Cardinals, but I mean such as the Cardinals who has a quarterback. To your point, Kyler's probably gonna be hurt for much, or in recovery for much of the season next year, or going to a team such as the Panthers where he can pick what quarterback, because there's going to be a lot of movement, right? As it relates to quarterbacks. I mean, pick whatever quarterback he wants to be his guy when he gets there, because you know how it goes when regimes change, right? Head coaches change, and then they get to pick their guy, or they get to say that this isn't the person that I want and move on from them or whatever. Ultimately, like I don't know that while we do agree, right, that with Kyler Murray, Arizona's got their quarterback and such, their franchise quarterback, especially notably since he just signed that deal. I think that the supporting cast might be interesting. I'm not sure what state they're in. They look like they might be getting ready for a rebuild. There's those reports that DeAndre Hopkins, they're going to try to shop him this offseason. And he's already kind of putting out those type of messages and, social media and such. So, I do believe D'Amico's probably going to take a job this offseason. Ideally, I'm saying Denver might be interesting to him. I think that the Colts might be interesting as well as it relates to, some of the pieces on that defense that he has familiarity with. You need a quarterback, of course, as we were just talking about a second ago. So he'd have to identify who he wants that to be, whether it's someone in the draft or someone, that they wouldn't want to trade for or whatever. So, I think, I don't know. I'm still thinking through that a little bit. I think that probably the most attractive might be Denver because of Russ. If he still feels that, Russ isn't necessarily, washed yet. They have a good defense as well. They've got pieces on offense. But they don't exactly have the draft capital, right, because of the Rush trade. So exactly. I really think that no knock on D'Amico and his pedigree, but I think that he may be probably kind of seeing some chips fall before he decides where he wants to go. So if Sean Payton is really coming out of retirement to coach, he may, look to make his decision based on what Sean Payton does, especially since, D'Amico's going to be in the playoffs and such, and Sean Payton's just, at home. So.
Yeah, and there's talk that Sean Payton may even wait till there's a right situation for him, possibly the Chargers.
All right,
If they get eliminated at some point, maybe even the Cowboys. I mean, that could be another one. Ty here in the comments says the favorite situation for D'Amico Ryans is 49ers defensive coordinator. Wishful thinking. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we would love if he just had a lifetime contract in San Francisco, but I want the guy to get paid. I mean, he deserves it, right? I think he deserves a promotion. And as much as I would like to see him stay in San Francisco, I think this is just a great opportunity for him to, spread his wings and become the next, head coach out of San Francisco.
I agree.
Let's jump into some talk of this game, right? So, look, the 49ers defense, they've played this Seattle team twice now. The entire 49ers have played this Seattle team twice now, and both times they've dominated pretty much on both sides of the ball, but in particular, I'd say on defense. Do you have any worries about this game for this defense, seeing as how, we've been seeing a lot of criticism about the secondary, some blown coverages, Hufanga, these last few games wasn't quite as sharp as he'd been in the first half of the season. Also, Diamador Lenore, there's questions around him. Is he good enough for the playoffs, right? So, is there any reason to think that the Seahawks would give the 49ers defense trouble in this third matchup against these two teams?
Well, I think, just the generic answer is yes, right? You never know, anything can happen. But I think that if the Niners play their game, that ultimately the defense should be good to go. I think that, while I think that the concerns about Diamador Lenore are warranted, he's gotten exposed on a couple plays, been out of position here and there. And even, even with the AJ Green touchdown that was scored in the last game on the second play of the game, I think there was some, offensive pass interference there, some jockeying that got him out of position as well. I think that there's some legitimacy to that, right? But I think that if we play, a complete game from a defensive standpoint at all three levels, that they should be good to go. My thing from a defensive standpoint is, don't play with your food. You know what I mean? Like, these guys, we're better than these guys. The team is better than, the defense is better than what their offense can put on the field. Yes, they've got DK Metcalf. Yes, they've got Tyler Lockett. But ultimately, there have been, a couple circumstances in the last two games that really could have changed the complexion of the game from a defensive standpoint if they didn't go that way, right? So in the first game, there was that just idiotic, halfback pass, running back pass that they did at the goal line. Shavarius Ward easily picked off.
Yep.
No, I'm confident the defense would have at least held them to 3 there. But if that's a different circumstance, if they score there, who knows how that game plays out, right? And also, the defense swarms. They're always talking about being in frame. And there was a drive in the last game where I think is Travis Homer his name that he fumbled due to a big hit. Who knows what that drive looks like if they don't have that turnover there. But I'm confident that Shavarius Ward, regardless of who he's matched up on, he'll be he'll do well as it relates to his coverage and such. We've got Dre Greenlaw back. I think we may have seen a little bit of his, him not being on the field, what that looked like. Although I like Azeez Al-Shaair. I think that Dre Greenlaw is going to definitely be flying around. Him and Fred can play sideline to sideline. And I'm confident in D'Amico Ryans to provide support to Diamador Lenore if it's needed. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree on that. And Ty here in the comments, makes a good point. The AJ Green touchdown was on Gibson, not Lenore. I think the touchdown was on Gibson for sure. He missed that tackle. The catch was on Lenore. But I mean, you said it, Chris. There was some pushing there, not enough, obviously, to warrant a flag from the refs, but it was enough to keep Lenore, I think, from getting up as high as he probably could have. He was in position. I think that's the takeaway we
Yeah.
can take from
I
that
do want to
play.
say something about that. To Ty's point, Steph, like what I like to see Gibson do there is a race AJ Green. You know what I'm saying? They were both in position ultimately. It's almost when you rewatch that play, it's almost as if they were waiting for the catch to happen in a respect. From a Gibson standpoint, when you rewatch that play, I would rather him just come and erase AJ Green trying to make that catch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree over the top. And then the tackling of attempts afterwards were just ridiculous. Needless to say. But what I like that it happened early in the game,
Yes.
flush it, and then move on, and then be aware, there from then on. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad that happened early as opposed to later.
Well, that's kind of been the theme with this defense, right? Like giving up an early score, an early
Yeah.
big play, and then just putting the clamps on after that. I don't really know what that's about, like starting like that. That's something I hope doesn't continue in the playoffs. I just don't think you can give any opponent any kind of hope, any kind of momentum. Momentum is huge, especially in these playoff games. And the Seahawks are going to be looking for it. So I think the Seahawks might try something crazy, try to bait the 49ers defense into making a mistake like that. But I think the 49ers, like you said, as long as they play their game, I think they should come away with the win. They should be dominant on defense. But let's talk about Pete Carroll, all right? Because this man is full of tricks all the time. Earlier in the week, he said, "Unfortunately, we're playing the Niners," and I don't exactly know the context around which that sentence was said, but it doesn't matter what the context was. Like, it just doesn't sound right, and you wonder why would he even say this? Like, it sounds like he has no hope for his team. Richard Sherman chimed in on this, and he pretty much said what I was thinking about all this. Richard Sherman said, "Pete does it all for a reason. He's never walked into a game he didn't think his team could win. Old dog, old tricks." I mean, what can we make of this Pete Carroll comment? Because when I saw it, I was like, there's definitely some more to this. He's just trying to get the 49ers to think that, the Seahawks are coming in there and going to lay down because they don't think they can actually win this game, and try to get some, I don't know, mental edge or advantage due to that. I just think he's trying to play some mind tricks here. What did
Without
you
a
think of it?
doubt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And it's interesting because my fiance is a major she's from California. She's a major Niners fan as well. So we always watch games, go to games, talk about, football and stuff. So earlier this week I was telling her, I was like, yo, like the only thing that kind of like has me a little, I'm not gonna say concerned, but that the Niners need to be aware of is this. Pete Carroll is filling those guys' heads with no one expected us to be here. They're counting you out.
Yep.
No one expects you to win this game. You were projected to win 5 games this year. That kind of stuff. He's filling their heads with that. So he's going to have them up. I am not a Pete Carroll fan, but I can give him his props in that regard that he will have these guys ready to go. So in that capacity, yeah, I think he's playing coy, playing games a little bit in that regard. I do it too. You know what I'm saying? Like, trying to, catch the Niners slipping a little bit. But honestly, like we should know better, in my opinion. Like, you saw Fred Warner's pregame speech in Seattle the last time we played them up there. Or maybe it was when we played them on Thursday Night Football, when Fred Warner gave that speech talking about we don't like these guys, let's go in here and handle business, and so on and so forth.
That was a good one.
Yeah, so they should be ready, readily aware of what Pete's trying to tell his team. They know us, but we know them. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I agree with you. He's definitely playing both sides of the fence with intention there to try to, see if they're going to catch us slipping.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't know, maybe some weeks ago this might have worked, right? I mean, the Nick Bosa even admitted, right, that in the Raiders game they overlooked Jared Stidham, and they overlooked the Raiders. The fact that happened, I think, was a blessing in disguise because it gave the 49ers a wake-up call, and they didn't have to lose to get that wake-up call. They still ended up winning that game. And so I think that was the type of game they needed to have in order to go into the playoffs with this mindset that, hey, we can't overlook anyone. And it doesn't matter if we beat these guys 2 games earlier in the season. We also have to remember the fact that, they were in the same situation last season against the Rams where they beat them twice, albeit like those 2 games, I think in the regular season were much more evenly matched. But, I still feel like they don't forget that. They can't forget that. And it would be silly to overlook the Seahawks for this game. And so I think it's okay for fans, to have our opinion and think that, the 49ers are going to blow them out, but it's not okay for any player to think that they're just going to blow the Seahawks out because, competitive advantages, that's a thing. And yeah, Pete Carroll's trying to create it. And I'm with you. He's going to try to get his guys motivated. He's great at getting his guys motivated. I'm not a Pete Carroll fan. He drives me nuts. I hate to watch him chewing his gum. But, I do have to give it to him. He does motivate his guys. He's great at that. So, I think that's something that the 49ers have to be ready for, and they'll be motivated too. They'll have their own bit of motivation. So I think overall, I don't think the 49ers are going to fall for this bait from Pete Carroll. But, it's something worth discussing. So let's talk about the rain for this game, right? Because the weather is looking kind of not good. I mean, for Saturday, I believe it's a 90% chance of rain, or actually 100% chance, according to this that I just pulled right before we went live here. This is from weather.com. So 100% chance of rain on Saturday, winds up to 15 miles per hour. And you can see the hourly rain percentages here. Around the time the 49ers will be playing, it might drop to like 70, 60, but it's going to rain. All right. Yeah. So I think that's something we have to be prepared for, but both mentally and, looking ahead, what can we expect from this team? John Lynch, who I mentioned earlier, he was asked about the rain. I believe this was in Tim K's article, actually. If you guys didn't check that out, Tim K actually put out a great article from The Athletic earlier this morning talking to John Lynch. And so if you guys have The Athletic, check that out. It was a great piece. But one question he asked him is, do you think your team is well suited for this kind of weather in a do or die game? And John Lynch said, I think we're set up to be. We're fairly complete. We do a lot of different things well. We stop the run. We run the ball well. Those are typically the things that are important in weather. Brock obviously didn't play in extreme weather growing up in Arizona, but at Iowa State, he handled a lot of bad weather, so I think he's equipped to do it. Another thing I'm going to add is the 49ers have been practicing in rain this week. I think gives them a bit of an edge as well. We know that Seattle is no stranger to rain themselves. I mean, they get a bunch of it up there. So I think if I had to, think about this and say which team gets the bigger advantage, I think it's a fact of a matter of who's going to take care of the football. Because I think that's a big part of rain possibly playing an impact, right? The ball's going to be slippery. There's the potential for turnovers for both teams, right? That could be a positive, that could be a negative. So I think that's one. And two, I think for the things that John Lynch mentioned, the 49ers run the football. That's one thing you want to be able to do in the rain. And even if you do throw, the 49ers they have Christian McCaffrey. They can do the short check downs. They can do screens, things like that. Things aren't too risky in the rain. So I think that bodes well for the 49ers. But what I am worried about is it possibly being like an equalizer in this matchup that, the 49ers are so heavily favored because they're the better team on paper. It could suddenly be a closer game than we think. We saw what happened in week 1 against the Chicago Bears. Of course, that was like a monsoon, but even so. So what do you think? What impacts can we expect to see in this game?
Yeah, I agree with John Lynch. in the sense that, the squad has definitely had experience playing in rain games over the last couple seasons. Really, I mean, there was that atmospheric river like last year in the Colts game or whatever.
Yeah.
So they definitely have their experience playing in it, and they've been practicing in it all week. I think that, they do say that weather can be an equalizer, right? But I think that with our running game and how dynamic it is with all of the horses that we have, whereas it will impact us, I don't know that it's going to impact us enough for it to not be effective, right? And then to your point, the short passes, quick passes, and such. I mean, in the Shanahan offense, that's kind of a staple. I think as it relates to Seattle, I mean, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, they definitely get their share of short passes, but really they're stretching the field. I think, if there's weather in that regard, it's going to impact them in a greater sense. Not that Brock hasn't been pushing the ball downfield, because he has been. However, I think that the bread and butter to the Niners game bodes well for a rain game like that. And then defensively, in the manner in which the team has been stopping the run, I think that's going to just make it that much harder for Seattle. And Seattle on the other side, them defensively, they've been having a hard time stopping the run. So I think that fortunately both teams got to play in it right. And I think that it's just about execution, and I think really about taking care of the ball, because we moved the ball in that Chicago game earlier this year, but I think opening drive, Debo had a fumble. There were other parts of the game where the offense was sputtering and such, and I think we're executing on a different level at this point in time in the season than we were then. So I'm confident that even with the rain, that they should still be okay.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what it's going to come down to. Honestly, the turnover margin and all that, that's what every game comes down to, I think. And for the 49ers, when they've won the turnover margin, they've been undefeated this season. And so as long as they stay on the positive side of that, they should be able to win this game, and the rain shouldn't be too much of a factor. So, and to your point about who it might impact more, Seahawks, if they have to, because I'm kind of thinking that the Seahawks would want to have an explosive play to feel good about their chances of winning. They want to get something deep downfield, a big play, because chipping away, I don't think has worked for them in these past two games that they've played against the Niners. And let me just share my screen really quick, because I tweeted about this not too long ago. Geno Smith, what I want you to focus on is the average intended air yards. So in week 2, it was 5.3. In week 15, it was even lower, 4.6. So in week 15, the Seahawks game plan was to get the ball out quickly, because you don't want Geno Smith, dealing with the 49ers pass rush. Get the ball out quickly, and that way you can at least move the ball. The problem with that is that when you're getting the ball out quickly, you're settling for less yardage, which we see here by the 4.6. So I think that's something that could potentially put the Seahawks back in that situation of week 15, trying to chip away and not doing really enough to win the game. Oop, my bad. I accidentally removed you. But so I think it can help the 49ers in that sense, that it can kind of like limit the Seahawks and any big plays that they might try to do. Because another thing about going back to Pete Carroll is I feel like that man always has some tricks up his sleeve, not just the mind tricks, but just like trick plays. And we talked about the one from that was week 2, right? Yeah, week 2 when they threw it in the end zone, that interception. That was just an odd play.
For sure.
But it's just an example of the tricks that Pete Carroll is always trying to pull, especially against the 49ers. I think we see something like that again in this game, but does the weather play a role in him calling a play like that? I think it might. And
I think it does. Yeah, I think it does. I think you make a really good point, because I was thinking the exact same thing, right? Doesn't mean he won't still call that play. But I think that it would impact that, because you're adding variables, such as, to your point, like a slippery ball or not good footing or whatever, especially in the special teams game, right? Because you always know, I mean, I think that's actually a strength that the Seahawks have, is their special teams unit. And I mean, shoot, in Seattle last year, that fake punt was that was the decider of the game when they like scored that, I don't know what it was, 40, 50-yard punt on fake punt or whatever that they ran in. Now, granted, Jimmy did have some interceptions that game, but aside from that, though, I think that was the deciding factor in that game. With some weather, that might actually, dictate or lessen the chance or the confidence that Carroll has to insert some of those wrinkles. What I think that the Seahawks are going to really try to do, I think that what they're probably working on big time is they probably feel in Seattle right now, right, that they were only a few plays away from being in the game or beating the Niners the last couple of times that they played them. Hey, if we don't fumble the ball here, hey, if we don't, throw an interception there, hey, if we don't drop a interception like Quandre Diggs dropped that Brock Purdy threw right into his chest there, they're thinking that they're just a couple plays away from having been in those games, right? So I'm thinking that the Seahawks are probably going to try to control the clock, try to get their running game going. We probably are going to see some of the quick passing game from them as well. And I just expected the team. I expect the boys to put the clamps on them. I don't, to your preview last night, I don't think that their offensive line is going to do a good job, containing the pass rush. We've gotten after Geno consistently the last couple of games, so. So I think that's going to be primarily what their approach is going to be is to control the clock, but I don't know if that's going to work for them.
Yeah, I agree. Ty says Bruce Ellington, that like button. Does that mean thumbs up? I mean, Bruce Ellington. I like Debo, that like button, better. I think
no
a little
doubt.
more clear of a message. But make sure you guys like this video if you have not yet. Appreciate all the love. Thank you so much, Ty, for being in the comments as always. Oregon Life says, who are all injured and out for this game? Is Charvarius Ward good to go? Glad you asked. I have it up right here. So on the 49ers side, it's just Jimmy Garoppolo and Ambry Thomas as declared out. We've got Dre Greenlaw back. Charvarius Ward is good. And Aaron Banks is going to be back. So the 49ers is going to go into this game full squad. And it seems like the Seahawks, for the most part, will too. One thing, we didn't really mention is the fact that Jordan Brooks,
I was going to say that,
going to be out for this game for the Seahawks. He was their leading tackler, I believe. Linebacker for them. So
like 160 tackles this year or something crazy.
So they'll be missing that presence in the middle of the field as well, in the short and intermediate levels of the field, and that can impact run defense as well. So I'm going to talk about that for sure in my preview tomorrow, talking about the 49ers offense going up against the Seahawks defense. If you guys didn't check my defense preview out, my 49ers defense preview, make sure you guys check that out. That went live last night, so that's on my channel. But one quick question about Brock Purdy, because, and it's not weather related, but just this is the first time that Brock Purdy's facing a defense for a second time. Although I think we have to consider the fact that, Brock Purdy in that week 15 game, he wasn't 100%. And he admitted to that. I think, you can kind of see it, that his oblique injury did limit him a bit. Do you think we see a different Brock Purdy in this game against the Seahawks, given that, he wasn't at 100% back in week 15?
I think we do for a couple of reasons. So I think we do for one, because to your point, he's healthier now than he was then. I think that also for two, he's got Shanahan. Like, I have all the faith in the world in Kyle Shanahan to, scheme a game plan, knowing that, this is going to be the Seahawks' second time, seeing Brock Purdy and such, being aware of that, the play designs and such. I mean, we've seen sprinkles of it, especially these last 4 or 5 weeks of like really, well-designed plays, especially in that Raiders game. Some of them we didn't hit or execute on, but they were there, right? They were there to be had. So that being said, I think for those two reasons, I think that also Shanahan's probably telling Brock, hey, listen, do what you do. You've been playing great ball. coaching him up on the maybe, things that he can improve upon, or maybe the reads he didn't make, or maybe when he bailed out of a clean pocket too early. But it's essentially telling him, like, listen, you've got the squad with you. You don't have to do it all on your own. Making sure that he's comfortable. And I think that, having a team like, as constructed what the Niners have, as well as a coach and a play designer and a sequencer like Kyle Shanahan, that should give Brock Purdy all the confidence in the world, right? And he has a lot of experience. He has in college, understandably, but he has experience. And one point I do want to make, I'm gonna make another point too, actually, Steph. Like, I think I haven't heard it really talked about enough, but thank God for that homestand that we had, right? There was that 3-game homestand that we had. I can't remember in what order we played those teams. But that's kind of when Brock Purdy came on. I think that he played his first 2 games at home. Then he went to Seattle, albeit he was banged up and on a short week. But he was able to get into a groove again with all those other things, with the team around him, with Kyle Shanahan playing at home. Knock on wood, all things as they should be. We should win this game, have another second playoff game at home. You see what I'm saying? So a comfortable environment, crowd behind you, familiar settings and such. So I think all that plays into it as well, which is really good. So, I do like that, he's been tested a little bit, having gone on the road to Seattle, not an easy place to play, short week, as well as, the challenges that we had in Las Vegas. I wouldn't really say from an offensive standpoint, they moved the ball all over the place. But in that game, of course, as we all saw, he essentially led 2 or 3 game-winning drives or whatever the case, So for those reasons, I think that we see a different Brock, but in a better way. It's not from a negative standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. 91649er says, I had a Ronnie Lott that like button. I like that. Make sure you guys like this video. Appreciate all the love. One last question before we get out of here. I can't believe we're already at 40 minutes. Time flies when you're having a good time.
Without a doubt.
For Brock Purdy, you mentioned the fact that, the home atmosphere can help him and kind of going back to the rain a bit. Do you think that the rain dampens the mood a little bit at Levi's, given that, I feel like Bay Area people hate the rain. They just they shrivel up and just can't handle it. And I know, because I used to live there, but do you think it could impact the fan energy and engagement in this game? Or, it's playoffs. Maybe everyone was just going to be like, fuck it. And let's just cheer our butts off. So what do you think? Do you have any fear of the rain kind of dampening the fans a bit?
That's a good question, because the reason why is because I'm looking at it right now. Yesterday, my girl and I were looking at some of we just happened to be on, like I mentioned, we've been following up, staying close with all this stuff happening with playoffs. And I'm seeing now, yesterday it was at $85, but on ESPN it says like tickets are as low as $71, which is interesting to me, right? So, either people are trying to move their tickets and they can't, or whatever, or they're trying to make money off of them and they can't. But, I think the spread has something to do with it. I think also that, that the perception that this isn't going to be much of a game has something to do with it. But all that being said, though, I still believe that it could be a zombie apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that the faithful are going to show out, and they're going to be out there. They're going to be loud. It doesn't matter. And keep in mind, we were a 7 seed last year. We didn't even have any home games last year in the playoffs. So I think that I have no doubt that the fans are going to be there, will be loud, and they'll be on fire for sure.
Yeah, as East Coast Red and Gold podcast says, it's playoffs. The energy's hiding. Maybe a regular season game, you're like, nah, I don't think I want to, stand out in the rain. But hey, you put a poncho on, you're as good as dry. You know what I mean? You're fine.
And it's the Seahawks.
Exactly. You might get a cold in a week, but you'll live. So just make sure if you're going to this game that you scream your butt off, go all out, because if there are going to be a lot of Seahawks fans traveling for this game, which I kind of expect they do, because it is so close for them. It is a rivalry renewed in a sense, and they don't fear the rain because they deal with a lot of rain in Seattle as well. They've dealt with a lot of home games and a lot of rain there. So I think Seattle fans are going to show up and they'll cheer. So 49er fans need to do the same, show up for their team. I saw someone asking in the comments, Nico here, is the rain starting at 1:30 on Saturday? I don't know how bad the rain will be. Just as a reminder, I just pulled this up a little bit before we went live. 100% chance of rain for Saturday, and it looks like around it'll be hovering between 85 and maybe 70% chance. I don't know, but to me, this looks like a guaranteed chance of rain here. And there will be some wind too, 15 miles per hour on the day. So that could definitely make an impact. But, like we said, we think it could be favorable for the 49ers as long as they take care of the football. Ty here says, dress for the weather and show out. Bay Area Baller says, I'm always the loudest dude in my section. Hell yeah, we love that energy. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be great atmosphere. Again, the saloon font's going to be out. The red end zones are going to be out. It's going to be great energy. Like you said, we didn't have a home game last year in the playoffs. So this is an opportunity for fans to, get that feeling back at Levi's. And so don't be scared of a little rain and show up and show out. All right, guys. Well, appreciate you guys being on with us today, talking about the 49ers in this wild card game. We're going to keep it going. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing my preview for the 49ers offense and how they match up against the Seahawks defense. So make sure you guys check that out. And if you guys haven't yet, my 49ers defense preview I posted yesterday. So make sure you check that out. Also, we were talking about Deshaun Gibson earlier. I posted an all 22 compilation. It's very short of his plays in week 18 against Arizona. So that play in question we were talking about, the AJ Green touchdown, that is on there because it was a key play in that game. So make sure you check that out on my channel. But have a good rest of your evening, guys. Peace.